while the house was being searched, she switched her phones. He had the food she brought over that night. The next day he was sick as a dog and was in hospital again for a long time. The autopsies on poor Gail and Heather showed that their entire livers were dead, that most of their bowel was dead, most of their kidneys were. They had suffered through being killed from the inside out. The A23 phone, which had been the one which would have any history of what website she's visited, what Google searches she's done, etc., that is never found. There's a sense of affront that this could be happening to someone like her when she should be starring in her own life. Welcome back to part 2 of my chat with Greg Haddrick, the Logie Award-winning screenwriter behind some of the country's biggest crime series and the author of the book The Mushroom Murders. We've been taking an in-depth look at the Erin Patterson case. In part 2, we take you into the trial. In preparation for writing the book, Greg witnessed the proceedings of the trial and had access to the court transcripts. Greg knows this case better than most. We talk about the strength of the prosecution case and how the defence team attempted to create enough doubt in the minds of the jury. A lot of things came up that you might not be aware of. My chat with Greg gave me a much greater understanding of what went on in one of the biggest murder trials in the country. If you thought you knew everything about the case, have a listen to our conversation and you might be surprised. Greg Haddrick, welcome back to part 2.
Thank you, Gary.
Of your second time on I Catch Killers. Greg, in part 1 we were talking about the circumstances leading up to the victims of this murder getting sick, the serving of the pie and the taken to hospital, and Erin's reaction to what happened. I think we left off on part 2 with the police starting to become involved, that you've had a lunch, 4 people are critically ill, and the person that served the lunch is going about okay, and homicide were notified at that point in time.
They were, and they for about, it all happened very quickly. I think for about a day they had, it was the informant was Detective Steve Eppingstall.
Yep.
And he says they sort of watched it for a day. And then on the 4th...
There was a comment in your book, and it reminded me, and it's a bit of black humour that comes in the world of policing and homicide, that we're not the nearly homicide. Because, and I had a bit of a chuckle, and this is a very serious case we're talking about, but that was very much the narrative in homicide, that often we get called about anything that's happened, and you get that many calls when you're on call. You have to draw the line and say, look, we will come if the person is dead. Up until that point in time, unless it's obvious, we don't go out. So I had a bit of a chuckle. That was police jargon.
It was police jargon, the nearly homicide squad.
Nearly the homicide squad.
So they had to, they started the 3rd, they are looking at it, and they've been told about it. And it's around about then when Erin takes the dehydrator to the Coonawarra tip. I think that happens on the 2nd, actually, on Wednesday the 2nd. And I think she says she took that because she knew that the child protection workers were doing a home. They had to visit the home environment to check that the kids would be okay. And so she knew that they were going to arrive in an hour's time. And there was a food dehydrator on the kitchen bench. Yeah. So she decided, get rid of that.
Get rid of that, covering up the evidence. Before we talk how the case built against Erin, the 3 of the 4 died from who consumed the meal. It became apparent in the reading of your book and stuff that I've picked up in the media how horrendous their deaths were.
Yeah.
And I think we talk about this, and Erin's attracted the attention of people for so many different reasons. But we got 3 good people who have lost their lives in a very painful,
torturous way. It was terrible, and Justice Bill made a point of that in his sentencing remarks as well, that the language when you say people are killed by mushrooms makes it sound soft.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a knife, it's not a gun, it's it's not an axe, it's a mushroom. And yet, the autopsies on poor Gail and Heather showed that their entire livers were dead, and that most of their bowel was dead, most of their kidneys were. They had suffered through being killed from the inside out. Which, as I say in the book, for me is almost like being drawn and quartered. It's shocking.
It was horrendous.
Yeah, it was horrendous.
And I hadn't even picked up on the fact that you say it didn't seem like a violent death because it's mushroom pie, and we sort of have a bit of a snicker about that, but we should really understand the pain that these people went through. And the survivor, of course.
And indeed.
Not only he lost his wife, but he was in a coma for a very long time, I think.
3 weeks, I think. Before he was finally extubated. And then in rehab for weeks after that. Claims, and I'm sure he's telling the truth, Ian is a very honest guy, that his health will never be the same. What they went through was a horrific ordeal. And it shouldn't be forgotten when people go, mushroom lady and mushroom killer. That language softens what was really happening.
And very real victims and a very horrendous crime. We've got the homicide involved. We've got they're starting to look at the case. When the victims passed away, I would imagine that it was led by homicide.
It was 2 a.m. on. So they're starting. They are becoming more involved on the 3rd. Steve Eppingstall said, we knew they had medical information that particularly Heather and Gail were not going to survive. So they were doing a report for the coroner, blah, blah, blah. And then 2 a.m. on the morning of the 4th, overnight, Heather's the first one to die, and at that point it became a homicide case. So by 7 o'clock that morning, or 7:30 that morning, Steve Eppingstall and his team are there. So it within 5 or 6 hours of Heather dying, it's an active homicide case.
Now, did they? I would imagine they went to Erin's home.
No, well, first of all, they got the bank records.
They
actually didn't go to. They went to Erin's home on the 5th. So this is now. So the sequence of events for them was they, however, you know more than I about what you've got to do to go through to get people's bank records, but they got them for the previous 2 months, I think it was. Meg, I forget her name, I should know, was looking through them from the 3rd back. So she was from the latest day back.
And looking, I would imagine, the purchase of the mushrooms, that it's not just gathering evidence to prove the offence, it's to discount the version.
That's right,
events.
of all of that. And within a couple of hours, she comes across the transaction where Erin has gone, to the local tip, to the Coonwarra transfer station.
Right.
Literally 2 days before. And she took that to Steve and go, well, she chucked something out. What has she chucked out? They get straight onto the officers at the Coonwarra transfer station. He goes to the CCTV and says, because they know the time of the transaction.
When she's done the drop.
Yeah, and there she is, getting out of a car and taking a big box and putting it in the tip. And so they send a worker down there to get it out, and it's a dehydrator. And Steve calls the local cops and says, can you pick it up for us at Wonthaggi? And they went later that afternoon and picked it up. So before the end of the day, of the first day of the investigation, they had Erin's dehydrator that she'd thrown out 2 days before.
And had Erin mentioned that mushrooms that she put in the dehydrator?
At this stage, she's still claiming she never foraged anything.
Right,
So she's claiming, and so the cops then... They wait until it's later that night on the 4th. So this is all happening on the 4th. So the 2 a.m. on the 4th is when Heather dies. That day of the 4th is when they get the dehydrator from the tip. That night of the 4th, Gail dies.
Yep.
And on the 5th, they raid. They go and search the house.
And what did they find? Anything of interest at the house?
Well, they found several computers, which they were looking for communication devices. They found the manual of the dehydrator with some other manuals, which was handy. They were looking for the dinner plates, but by then there were no grey plates any longer.
Yep.
But they took photos of everything in the kitchen and took some phones. Not all the phones, but some of the phones. And of course, they asked Erin to hand over her main phone that she'd been using all year. And that's when she had, while the house was being searched, she switched her phones.
Okay, break this down for us, Greg, because this,
yeah. So this is, she's from February. She's bought a new Samsung A23 that had a phone number in it that was the phone number that everyone contacted her on, which ended in 783. And that's been her main phone throughout all these months that she's been doing whatever planning has been necessary for this crime. And in the trial, she claims that the phone started playing up and had a screen which froze a bit conveniently just a day or two before the raid. That said, she's still using it, and it's still accepting and receiving texts and calls, etc., right up until the raid. And Steve Eppingstall, as the informant, is walking around with her and mostly sort of accompanying her around the house while the cops do the search. And at some point, she manages to take the SIM card out of that phone. We know it was in it at 12:01, and we know it was out of it by 1:40. So sometime in that hour and a half, she's taken the SIM card out of her main phone, put the main phone somewhere, and put a SIM card from her tablet, which had a different phone number, ended in 835, into a second handset, which she said, I just wanted to stop Simon from bothering me, and so I was going to change my phone number anyway. But she decides to do it in the middle of a police search. And then when the cops at the end of the search ask her to surrender her phone, the one she gives them is phone B, which she had also factory reset while she was walking around with the cops, clearing everything off it. Yeah. And that's the one that you see her hand over. And the 783, the A23 phone, which had been the one which would have any history of what website she's visited, what Google searches she's done, etc., that is never found. The cops never find that.
It tells me something about her. I've seen organised crime types that have got that calmness to, they're sitting there talking as they're changing the SIM card in their phone and all that. But it shows a little bit about her, doesn't it?
It does.
But I suppose callous enough to invite people over and know you're going to feed them a lethal meal, can sit there and calmly manage to hold your mettle enough to change a SIM card in the phone while police are executing a search warrant for suspected murder.
Yeah,
that's family members.
That's pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, it's
and
callous.
She manages to do that.
Yep.
She then puts that 783 SIM into a Nokia phone, and as I say, we never have found. No one's ever found that her main phone. The cops take that phone. At that point, they think that is her main phone. She's done that. She actually fooled them, and it's in a safe in Steve Eppingstall's office in Spencer Street. And that night, Erin wonders if they've turned it off or disconnected it from the internet, and she does a Find My Phone search and realises they haven't. So even though she doesn't have to because it's already clean, she factory resets it remotely again. At 5 o'clock in the morning from her bedroom in Leongatha. And
it tells a lot about it. It tells a lot. And why this is going on, there's some other things that are coming out. She's not reacting the way that you would think. Like if these people are so close to her, the closest family she's got, she's invited them to lunch, and they're all in hospital on their way to dying or have died, and she doesn't seem to be reacting.
She never asks how they are. Never says, can I go and see them? Can I just, maybe apologise profusely for, whatever I did that caught? Nothing.
Okay.
Never goes near them. Complains that no one tells her what's going on. But then she doesn't ask. she could have easily called Simon and said, how are they going?
Yeah.
It's the cops who arrive and tell her that Heather and Gail have both died.
Yeah.
But even then, she doesn't call anyone or offer any condolences that we were told at court.
Yeah.
At all. And the first interview, a lot of which you can now find online, that happens after that police search. So that search finishes around about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
There's a lot of image there of them sitting at a table.
Yeah.
Is that the
That's all that search.
Yeah.
While that search is happening.
Okay.
So and all of that was presented at court.
Yep.
And while she's sitting at that table, I have the other thing that the police did. I think, I'm not sure if you've read this in the book, is that they catalogue all the things they took during the search, but there were a couple of laptops that were left there, and it did make it look like it was a bit of a sloppy search, and they missed things that they really should have picked up. And I just wonder, knowing from other cases, from other homicide cops, and you know what you think, but that I suspect that was deliberate. That
see my poker face, Greg?
Yes.
For those just listening, there's a poker face.
That I'd be very surprised if they hadn't left them there to see if she continued incriminating behaviour. But that never came out in court. That's just me from knowledge of other cases going, no, I don't think that was sloppy. I think they knew exactly what they were doing there.
They certainly would have had their focus on her. What about the item taken from the tip that she disposed of?
So that is now back at Wonthaggi Station, which is where the cops take her after the search for her interview.
Yep.
So they start asking, why she had the lunch, and she says, I just want to stay in touch with they're my family and my grandparents, etc. Then they talk about whether she ever foraged for any food. She denies ever foraging. Did you ever, dry or dehydrate any food? And she goes, no, never. And the dehydrator is in the next room. It's literally they've already got it, and it's in the next room.
Yeah, it's nice locking people into lies when you know they're lying.
Yeah, yeah. And so he knew that right off the bat.
Yeah,
and
let her hang herself.
Yeah,
yeah.
And then I think it's a great interview in the sense that he then goes back to her presentation at hospital and asks her about that, and when she did end up at Monash Medical Centre for a day and was under observation, what the doctors thought then, and when she found out about, what might have actually caused the other guests to be unwell, etc. So he goes all of that, and then he comes back and says, "Let me go through what we took from the house. First of all, this manual for a sunbeam dehydrator.
Yeah.
What's that about?" And she denies it again. And I thought to me, I think they've given her every opportunity.
Yeah, they've been fair
to think through this. Yeah. Have a think. Now we're going to give you another chance.
Yeah.
What can you tell us? And she denies it again.
Yeah.
And no, never had one. Might have had one years and years ago, but don't.
Again, those vague answers that give you a little bit of leeway either way.
Yeah. And so they finished that interview, and Steve actually drove her back home that night. And it's that night that she factory resets the phone remotely in the office. But I think you can tell from what they've already got, what they already recovered, the way she behaved in that interview, the way she lied about everything. Yeah. They'd be thinking,
You're thinking you got a case, but as was highlighted in your dissecting the trial, beyond reasonable doubt, three murders and an attempt murder, the evidence looks overwhelming, but the element of doubt can be, was it an accident?
Yeah.
Was it an accident? And the defence have just got to chip away in the minds of a couple of the jury members, and all of a sudden this person...
You get that doubt, yeah. Because, she's lying because she's dead scared that she's going to be, accused of killing them. And you go, well, yes. But does that explain everything? And there's...
Well, I'm looking at some of the things from breaking down the notes I've made from reading the book and the other media accounts of what's gone on, like the points you'd be looking at, like how strong was her anger against Simon, and she's not going to say I wanted to kill him, but what was it? Was there evidence there suggesting that there was a hatred or an anger towards Simon?
Well, there was back in December.
Yeah.
But in the months leading up to the lunch, not so much. I mean, he'd said, no, I don't want to come to lunch with you.
Yeah.
But other than that, there's nothing in particular the prosecution could point to that illustrated, building hatred.
Yeah, it makes it hard because the jury, like we sit and struggle sometimes with motive, or we were talking about struggling with motive. The jury, if she's making threats, you're going to regret what you've done to me and all that. But so the prosecution can present, well, they've separated, but the defence can go, well, there's lots of people who've separated, and play it off that way.
Yeah.
Why did she invite the guests to lunch? Well, claims to tell them about her cancer diagnosis. How did she explain that away? Like in the trial?
In the trial, she admitted that she had to admit that was a lie because there is no record of any cancer diagnosis, and the prosecution was saying she was expecting all 4 of them to be dead, and no one would know that she'd ever said that.
Yeah.
But in the trial, she said, "Look, I did have a real medical issue. I'd been embarrassed about my weight, and it had been a growing issue, and I'd been bulimic for 20 years, and it was stressing me out, and I had to do something about it. And I'd made a booking to investigate doing gastric bypass surgery, and that was really the medical issue that was on my mind. But I was too embarrassed to actually say that to them. But I was looking at being in hospital for that surgery, and
this was her giving evidence at the trial?
At the trial.
Yeah.
The prosecution, as far as I know, I'm pretty sure of this, they had no idea of this until her evidence in chief at the very end of the trial. Yeah.
And just to bring people up to speed, sorry, I've jumped ahead, but how long after the death of the 3 people, the deaths of the 3 people, was she charged?
She was charged on the 2nd of November 2023. They died in the first week of August, so 3 months.
Okay, 3 months she's charged. Now we've sort of fast-forwarded to the trial, and we're at the trial. With the trial, again, just so people understand, that an accused person doesn't have to give evidence. It's up to the prosecutors to prove the case, to prove the allegations against the accused, and then once they've done that, then the accused presents their defence, and the accused doesn't have to get in the witness box, and very rarely do accused people get in the witness box, especially at murder trials, because it opens them up to all sorts of cross-examination, and it invariably goes bad for them. She chose to get in there. Why do you think she chose to get in there?
There were things in her story that I think only she could explain, and only she had an explanation for.
Yep.
And I think she felt if she had any chance of being able to create reasonable doubt in the minds of a jury, it would be her who would be able to do that.
Okay.
I think that's why.
So your reading of it, listening to it, following it, was she was pretty well jammed up after the prosecution finished their case.
Yeah.
And she had to present something, and she had no witnesses to come in to say no, she was in the state at the time or whatever. It wasn't that type of case.
Yeah, she had no one except for herself who could explain it.
And so she rolled the dice and thought that she'd get away with it. So, getting back to what you were talking about before, the cancer, she agrees it wasn't cancer, but what it was an embarrassing medical condition, and she had actually booked in to get a gastric band surgery. Is it? That's
what's it called? Gastric bypass.
When did you have it last?
Yeah. So during her evidence in chief, when Colin Mandy was asking her these questions, she just said she was giving her history of being bulimic and her history of having terribly embarrassing issues with her weight and needing to address it, and that she had a plan to do gastric bypass surgery. That's all in her evidence in chief. When Nanette Rogers was cross-examining her, this is in the last 2 or 3 days of the trial, and she's challenging, what she said the lunch was about, and gets to the point where this apparent plan for gastric surgery, and Nanette says something like, "But it was nothing more than a plan, was it? You're just sort of making this up." Yeah. And she said, "No, I had an appointment." And that really threw.
That would have been silence.
It was like, what?
Yeah.
And she said, no, where with? And with the Enrich Clinic in Melbourne. I had an appointment to see someone to discuss this surgery. And that was a shoe drop moment in the trial, because the prosecution did not know that at all. And so that was on a Friday morning, and they literally had Friday afternoon to try and figure out what the hell that was all about, because they only had another day or two.
She would have been finished.
She would have been finished, yeah. And I remember listening to it and thinking, that does put a different... If she really had an appointment to do this, with a surgeon who was going to do this surgery for her, and she's given this history, all of a sudden you're thinking, oh my God, well, that does explain the lunch.
It adds, and that's where it's on that delicate balance, isn't it? Because that you buy into that and you go, oh, she's telling the truth there. And I understand she's embarrassed to talk about the nature of the surgery, but it was a medical condition. That's all explainable. So it's those little things that can make a difference.
It can.
Yeah.
And this is at the very end of the trial, and I'm trying to think like a juror, going, well, now I've got to re-look at a host of other bits of evidence where you went, it's 90% sure, but there's a 10% chance this could have happened. But if they can prove that she was going to have this surgery,
adds credibility.
It adds credibility
to the lunch and
to everything.
Her version of events. So did the prosecutors would have scrambled? I would imagine there'd be people running out of the court and making calls.
I would imagine they did scramble, and they scrambled very well. And because what they discovered was that Erin did have an appointment. What she'd remembered is that she had made an appointment with the Enrich Clinic, and she had. What Erin didn't realise was that the Enrich Clinic doesn't offer that surgery.
Right. Okay. There's a problem.
So again, it was a big problem, and you go, oh, so she wasn't telling the truth.
Yeah.
It was again, as people who are so good at lying. There was part of it was true.
A smidgen of truth.
A smidgen of truth, and the rest wasn't.
Yeah.
So yes, she made a booking to Enrich to do something. Now it's mostly, and this is apparently highly respected clinic, but it's mostly cosmetic surgery.
Yeah.
It's not genuine surgical procedures for serious health issues. How
did that play out in court? Did they set the trap for her?
They did. They came back first thing Monday morning.
Yeah.
And Nanette did a string of questions, which sort of led her down the trap, and then finally was saying, "But here, do you agree that's what Enrich offers? Here's their website, blah blah blah, and can you see that it does not offer gastric bypass surgery?"
Yeah.
And she went, "Oh, well, I thought it did," and then it took Colin Mandy in his re-examination on the very last day of the trial to say that there was it didn't even now offer liposuction, but back then there was one of their practitioners who did offer liposuction. Yeah. So he was trying to sort of backtrack
to soften the lie, and it was an honest mistake.
It was an honest mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she would have looked at this, but there are just too many times where you try and take Erin at her word, and then you realise you can't.
Did in the way she responded when she was called out, is there still that calmness about her? Like it's not the sort of collapse at head or
No, there wasn't. There was never a collapsed head moment. There was never oh my God, I'm done for.
Okay. Just I've lost a point here.
I'll keep going. Keep batting.
There are a couple of other things like serving of the food, grey plates, a separate plate for her. Did that play out in the trial?
There was a lot of discussion about the plates because she obviously claimed she never had 4 grey plates, and
Ian was adamant.
Ian was adamant that she had.
Yeah.
And the plates the police found during their search, and I think there were 2 black ones and there were 2 black and red ones, and there was one that her daughter had made at kindergarten or somewhere, which was sort of a multicoloured one. There weren't many, and in fact, Simon said to the police, he said she never did have many plates.
Yeah.
But those were the only ones the police could find when they did their search. And they matched what Erin had said she'd put the beef Wellingtons on. Not at all what Ian said she'd put the beef Wellingtons on. And Ian he was a very credible witness.
Yeah.
He just was particularly because, he couldn't remember exactly what people said in the conversation, blah, blah, blah. When he wasn't entirely sure, he was quite honest about saying, I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
But when he was sure, he just had
lock it in.
lock it in, a quiet certainty that
Yeah.
you just couldn't resist. And then what they, jumping forward a little bit, what we didn't know until all the pre-trial rulings on admissibility and inadmissibility of evidence, which were lifted 4 weeks after the trial.
Yeah.
The jury never got to hear this during the trial proper. But the minute the lunch was finished, at 3:00, when Don and Gail and Ian and Heather drove off and the boys were in the TV computer room, she took a box of rubbish to the tip. And that happened within 15 minutes of the lunch ending.
And are you privy to the logic of the ruling of that being excluded from evidence?
I believe, yes, that's been released. They're not trying to hide it. I believe it's because when the police found out about that trip to the tip, it was about a week and a half later, and they couldn't recover what she'd thrown out. So because there was no evidence that it was just innocuous, that it was just food scraps, they said it'd be too prejudicial to put it in, thinking it might have been something prejudicial.
Because the next time she took something to the tip, it was definitely...
It definitely was.
Yeah. I suppose we do need those protections in place, but...
I suppose that's...
Sorry, I'm trying to be reasonable here, Greg. I just wanted to come across reasonable.
Look, I can understand that. I can understand the reasoning behind that. I haven't done, big legal surveys and forensic examination of it, but just listening to the number of crime cases I've listened to and followed, the law and judges are very strong on saying to a jury, you are the arbiters of fact. You are the ones who decide what is and isn't fact. Let me deal with what law is and make sure it's a fair trial, but you decide what's fact. Time and again you realise they can only decide what's fact on what's presented to them. Yeah. And a lot of times, like with that trip to the tip immediately after lunch, why couldn't you say to a jury, it might have been innocuous, we have no evidence, but it did happen, and let the jury be the arbiters of fact that you say they are?
Greg, I'm with you on that. We've got the jury system because we want to rely on being judged by your peers on the available evidence, and they're put on this pedestal to make judgment on another, one of their peers, but they're only provided limited information.
Limited bits.
Yeah,
and I think if you either trust them that they understand what prejudice and bias is and know how to take that into account, or you don't. And if you do, I think more should be ruled inadmissible than the law currently allows. Yeah. That's not to say it should be open slather and everything. Yeah. But I think at the moment the pendulum's just swung a bit too much.
And the judges, in their judges summing up, give the warnings, the necessary warnings, and they
all
could have explained it the way that you just explained it. But it's frustrating from a policing point of view, seeing the jury sit there, and you can see them literally scratch their heads sometimes, and there's something missing here. We know
it's missing.
Why was that just cut off, or why have we been excluded from the court where we're judging whether this person is guilty of murder, and they've just had 3 hours of voir dire, legal argument, and we've been excluded?
Yeah.
Shouldn't we be part of that? Shouldn't we?
So I think it's interesting. My reading and my understanding, I could be corrected on this, is that the jury system began hundreds of years ago, because you would be tried not only by your peers and by your community, but by people who knew you.
Yes, yeah.
And the irony is now you can only be tried by jurors who don't know you.
Yeah.
And in fact, if you have any connection with the victim or their relative, with the accused or their relatives, etc., then you've got to excuse yourself from the jury. If you have any connection with any of the witnesses, you excuse yourself from the jury. So the jury, who are not allowed to talk or interact with people, are meant to judge facts purely on a highly curated set of evidence which is presented to them.
them.
Whereas the system began with, yeah, I know Joe Blow over there, and, I know you don't get on well with him, and I got on well with him, and then we've got 12 of us here, all have different relationships with him. Do you reckon he's capable of doing that? We can sort it out.
Did he punch John in the pub or not?
Yeah, or not. Yeah. Is he that sort of guy?
I think the evolution of the jury system, I think we need to evolve, especially now with, you're covering the crimes where the warning now, you're not to read the afternoon paper, you're not to watch the news. Well, now we've gone past that.
Yeah.
We have gone.
It's going to happen.
So we know you're going to look, and the moment you walk out of this courtroom, you're going to Google how this case is going and how it's been reported. But as a juror, you can only rely on what's presented in the court. That should be enough of a warning. It should be enough. But it's.
I guess I'm just coming at it from the point of view of shouldn't we start a conversation about whether the system can be reviewed and improved a bit? And it's a system that I fully support.
Yes.
Completely. I just think it could be better.
Well, you talk the pendulum, and sometimes the pendulum have swung too far, and we need to bring it back a little bit. But I have long held a bugbear of the jurors aren't presented with all the facts, and if they are to adjudicate on the facts,
give them
provide them all the facts.
That's right.
And then they can put what weight they think necessary on it. But it's an interesting argument or interesting discussion. Her claims of having diarrhea, this trapped her, didn't it? Because we talked briefly in part one that she said the onset of diarrhea came in the afternoon, and whereas if it's from the ingredients that the others were suffering the diarrhea, that was 8 to 10 hours later, and that. So then she's left with this conundrum of, I said I was sick, but now I'm not that sick. And she started to give different versions of events of how sick she was, or no, she got really sick later. Talk us through that, because that was a miscalculation on her behalf.
I think it was a miscalculation on her behalf, because Simon was pretty adamant that, on the phone the first time they talked, she said that she initially started feeling a little bit woozy, 4:30-ish in the afternoon. Now, even if he's got that a little bit wrong, she was, and a normal gastro reaction to a lunch at 1 o'clock would be about that. And then, as I said, she said to too many people that she was suffering from diarrhea when she drove her son's mate home, that she was sort of locked into a version of that.
Yeah.
Even though she was a master at sort of watering things down, when she's in the...
Backtracking.
Yeah, just walking things back a little bit when she's giving her evidence. And building up what she was saying happened, after midnight on Sunday night.
Yeah.
And that's when 3 days later, she's first use of the word explosive diarrhea, which was, I think, to Sally Ann Atkinson, to the health expert.
Yeah.
And so now she's trying to make it sound like her strong symptoms didn't happen till roughly the same time.
Yeah.
But you could never get away from the fact that she told too many people that really by 7 o'clock she was...
happened earlier.
It happened earlier. So then Colin Mandy's only answer to that was he'd done, in my mind, a very good job of
he did try and cover that up.
He did try and cover up very well. So she was saying she added... Now let's go back to 9 o'clock in the morning, 9:30 in the morning, and she's making the mushroom mixture for the beef Wellingtons.
A little bit of a taste test.
A little bit of a taste test.
Yeah.
And realises they're really a bit bland and don't have any flavour, and that's why she adds the dried mushrooms from the Asian grocer.
Yeah.
From some shop she can't remember where. Then comes the issue. Well, most home cooks, if you've started tasting something and you think doesn't have the right flavour, and you add something to it, you taste again.
Yes.
That's what almost everybody does. You're right. If you're not a taster, fine. But if you are tasting to check the flavour and you add something, you taste again. But the defence couldn't say that at the beginning, because the question would be, well, why isn't she dead? If or at least in intensive care.
Yeah.
If she was adding death cap mushrooms to it. So that was skipped over until Colin Mandy realised at the end of the trial, I think he realised at the end of the trial, certainly how it came out, that one explanation for her feeling diarrhoea at 7 o'clock is that she had tasted a bit. So all of a sudden tasting is mentioned on the second last day of the trial.
Yeah. That can adjust the clock back.
to adjust the clock back.
Yeah.
And you go, well, Okay, so but it must have tasted, because she had no liver damage.
Yeah.
And this is where, in terms of just doubt, all you need is doubt. So the defence column man had also accessed one journal from Germany, and there's more research into death cap mushrooms over in Europe because there's more of them.
Yeah.
There's more death cap mushrooms. That say there are 4 stages, and just because you eat the same thing doesn't mean everyone ends up, with the same stage.
Yeah.
You can have someone just having very small reaction, and someone else who's eating the same thing have a different reaction. And he was using that to try and cast doubt in the jury's mind that, in fact, Erin's claimed diarrhea, and there were just enough medical symptoms when she finally did get into Monash Hospital to go, but she probably did suffer something.
Yeah. Maybe you did if you've murdered 3 people.
Yeah. But she must have just tasted a tiny enough amount to feel sick at 7 o'clock at night. But you're now starting to ask people to believe a lot.
Yeah, but again, it's putting
doubt.
And also, I think the body weight of a person and the age of the
They
people
all
that died, it could react. And if you just have the professor or the expert witness there saying, well, it's possible, because most things are possible.
That's what they're very good at asking that question.
Yeah.
Not what's most likely. It's like, but is it at all possible?
You've been in court too long.
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard that question too many times.
And the answer is, well, yes.
It's a hard one to say no to, isn't it? It's,
but you did then have to go, well, that's weighed up with, so she tasted enough to realise there wasn't enough flavour, added Asian dried mushrooms, then just tasted a tiny little quarter of a teaspoon, luckily. Apparently nothing else. And that was enough that, when she started to feel symptoms at 7 o'clock, it was because of that. And you go, okay. But the difference, you still come back to thinking, and I think that while you're putting doubt in someone's mind, but then you go, 3 people died. 1 very, very nearly died, and she was discharged after a couple of hours.
Yeah, yeah.
And you go, that's not just an incremental difference. That's
a huge
difference.
And there was a relucance to get tested. To start, and the relucance to bring the kids in. The other thing that I found from your book, from your juror, and I think this is the type of thing that goes through a jury's mind, where you're sitting there, and I think it was just sort of a reflection of what goes on in the juror's mind, that Erin was saying that she had I think it was a 3-hour round trip that she had to take, and to drop her son somewhere.
Flying lessons.
And she was getting round in white pants.
Yes.
And like the jurors just thinking, and this, I'm sure, and it's not legal basis, I'm sure this is how the jurors process stuff. If you had diarrhea, would you be wearing white pants? Yeah, like little things like that.
Yeah.
But these are all the type of things that go through the mind. Getting rid of the dehydrator, we've talked about that. But what explanation did she give when she was in the witness box for getting rid of the dehydrator?
Sheer panic. That she thought if it was left there, and she thought that Katrina Cripps from Child Protection was coming around that afternoon.
Yeah.
And if she saw that she had a dehydrator, which still had mushroom crumbs on it, because that's how they found that she was likely to be blamed for it. Yeah.
And did she, and I might have this wrong, but didn't she allude to or claim that Simon also accused her at some, did you?
Yes. No, that happened. So what, before she gets rid of the dehydrator, so that's the other reason, is it's a contested reason. When she was admitted to Monash, and the kids were there as well, and they were just going through tests, the kids were asking why they'd been taken out of school. I think, what's all this about? And she was saying, well, they think that it's the lunch I did on Saturday and the mushrooms in it that might have made, Pop and Nana a bit sick. And the kids were saying, but why are we here? Because you took the mushrooms off the one that we ate, etc. And it started a conversation about mushrooms. And that led to the description that the kids knew, and Erin knew, that when she first bought the dehydrator, she crushed up dried, button mushrooms and put them in muffins because, her daughter didn't like mushrooms and she wanted to feed her some good veggies.
Yeah.
And the daughter actually preferred the mushies with the mushrooms in than the ones without the mushrooms in. And that, of course, telling that story, you mentioned the dehydrator that she used to actually put the mushrooms in the muffins.
Yeah.
And according to Erin, this was on the Monday afternoon, I think, and that's when Simon said to her, "Is that how you poisoned my parents, with that dehydrator?"
Right.
And that she says that's the moment when she realised she was going to get blamed for everything.
Okay, so again, trying to write off her actions that sound, very damning towards her is I panicked because Simon was accusing me of
killing his mum and dad.
Yeah.
And now Simon point blank denied ever saying that to her. It comes down to, do you take Erin at her word?
Mm.
If you do take Erin at her word, it's consistent with what she said she did.
Yeah.
She had Simon already blaming her. She was feeling panicked. She knew child protection was coming around the next day. Stress, this is all going to come back at me. I've got to hide whatever I can. And takes the dehydrator to the tip.
What about her foraging for mushrooms? When did that break? When did she acknowledge that she was...
That happened... it wasn't during the record of interview with the police. It was after the 5th of August.
Yeah.
By the time they did... It was the autopsies that sort of showed beyond doubt.
That it was death cap.
That it was death cap mushrooms that killed Don and Gail. And they DNA testing on the crumbs from the trays in the dehydrator showed that there were death cap mushrooms on the dehydrator.
Right.
So the combination of scientific evidence that was beyond doubt, as opposed to, there's a 10% chance of this, or there was no explanation for that other than she had used foraged mushrooms in those beef Wellingtons.
Okay.
Then on top of that, and I think this was the other thing, they finally, when they went through, there was an SD card with photos on it, and there was a tablet that she'd used that had thumbnails of photos from the memory cache from Google Photos. And they showed photos she'd taken of mushrooms on the dehydrator.
Right.
And particularly some of the photos were clearly foraged mushrooms.
Okay.
Particularly there was one set that Dr. Tom May, who's a mycologist, again, he said with a very high level of confidence they were death cap mushrooms.
Yep.
He couldn't say beyond all doubt, but with a very high level of confidence. And given the crumbs and the DNA were there, you sort of go with that. So over the course between August and November when she was charged, the evidence that she must have foraged, and death cap mushrooms cannot be cultivated.
Yeah.
They can only grow on roots of oak trees. So you have to go out to a park somewhere where there's an oak tree.
Specific locations.
So put all those facts together and you can't keep denying it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did she, when she was giving evidence, did she...
she said she had... She then said she started foraging mushrooms during COVID.
Right.
So all of a sudden it started 3 years ago. And there are photos of her on, I think, the rail trail, and with the kids, where they're on their scooters and she's picking mushrooms. There's photos of her in her kitchen in the house before the one she owned at Leongatha, the one before that, and again there's foraged mushrooms that she says she just got in the backyard, which are on the kitchen bench. So all of a sudden, once that wall came down, she's a forager.
Yeah.
What she denies ever doing is deliberately foraging death caps. She said, obviously I must have at some point because they're in the dehydrator and they're in the beef Wellingtons.
Terrible accident. Again, put that little bit of doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's... I'm just looking all the different parts that the trial was hinging. It would have been an interesting trial to listen to because you'd be walking out each day thinking, we've got a... I'm talking from a police point of view. Or she came out on top here.
No, and they were
creating those doubts.
Yeah, several nights when I was talking, to my kids and my wife about it, and they were just reading headlines and had read headlines from months ago and going, why is it taking so long? Shouldn't they lock her up? And I was going, she might not be convicted here.
Yeah.
And they were quite surprised. But the more there were several days through the middle and second part of the trial where I'm going, this isn't necessarily over.
There's a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. The summation of the case that I look at, like we've gone through the trial, she's given evidence. How long was she in the witness box for?
About 6 or 7 days.
Oh, that's a long time.
It's a long time. I think she was 3 days giving her evidence in chief and 3 or 4 days in cross-examination.
Any chinks in her armour, breaking down, emotion, anything?
No, not really.
Just
It was a pretty good performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. This is a summation of just what we've talked about, but of the case against Erin. So if you're presenting the prosecution case, Erin had foraged for wild mushrooms near parks and trails. She had dehydrated death cap mushrooms in her dehydrator. The mushroom mixture in her beef Wellingtons had included those dehydrated death mushrooms. The beef Wellington had killed 3 of her lunch guests and very nearly killed a 4th. It had killed all their livers. That's the result. By contrast, Erin had not suffered any liver damage at all. No. So if you're going to summarise the case, it sort of gets back to the start of it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Your fictional juror, and I just take this quote out of the book because I thought it was a good way of explaining it. They were 5 points I just read out there. Yeah. The first 4 could be explained by a tragic accident or a deliberate act with murderous intent. The 5th makes a tragic accident less likely explanation and an act of murderous intent a more likely explanation. So that 5th one, if Erin had not suffered, if she got sick and survived, it would be hard for anyone to convict her.
Yeah.
It's just a difficult one, isn't it?
It is.
And the judge, was it Justice Beale?
Justice Beale.
Okay. Yeah. In his summing, when we talk about what the role of the jurors, and this is from the transcripts, if you find that the accused lied about something, you can use that fact to help you decide whether or not you believe the other things the accused has said. That is not to say that just because you find that she lied about one matter, you must also find she has been lying about everything else. But you can use the fact that she lied to help you determine the truthfulness of other things that she has said. Do not reason that just because a person is shown to have told a lie about something, she must be guilty. Evidence that she told these lies is not evidence of guilt. These alleged lies are only relevant, if all, in assessing her credibility. Now, there's a lot of warnings there, isn't there?
There's a lot.
Like, you get in there and lie through your teeth, but that doesn't mean you're guilty.
No.
So that's why it makes, like, you and I both understand the court system. We've seen it enough, been involved in it enough. But for a juror, you'd be sitting there scratching your head going, well, we know she told this lie, this lie, this lie, this lie, but the judge is saying, well, that doesn't make her guilty.
It's hard, and that's what I think makes it such a strong conviction.
Yeah.
With all of those warnings and thinking we can't take that step, we can't take that step, we can't take that step. And yet still, when you look at the totality of the evidence, there's no other reasonable explanation.
Yeah.
There's just too many places where the stretch is too big, where, maybe that didn't happen for 5% of this reason. Mm. But when you string 20 of them together, and you know that so many times she's only told the truth when she's had to, when she's been caught in a lie, and she's lied so much so that her credibility is, if you assume she has very little credibility left to begin with, then you look at the whole line, and then I think for my juror it was feeding the kids the leftovers on the Sunday night.
Well, that's a big...
that for me is, that's a big one.
You would not take that risk.
Cannot, that's not there's a 5% chance maybe, and you go, no.
Should be right.
No.
You don't do it.
You don't do it. Now, as soon as you start taking that out and go, well, she must have known that those people were contaminated, then everything else makes... And I think Justice Beale said that's the other thing he's looking to do is you can only convict if it's the only reasonable explanation for the whole of the evidence.
Yeah.
And I believe that's the position the jury reached, having been warned again and again and again not to leap to that conclusion.
Yeah, well, they are all the warnings in there. Yeah. I always look at people because that's drummed into you early throughout your policing career or investigative career as a detective that, lies that don't make them guilty. When they're self-serving lies, I start to form like, none of her lies have been detrimental to her.
No.
Like, they're all self-serving lies. And
Yeah.
when people tell me, look, there might be a mental health issue, but every sort of thing that's coming out of their mouth is self-serving. I weigh that some people are liars. We've all met them, like the compulsive liars. But when they're self-serving lies, I start to look at it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And what I see from all her lies, everything was to distance her from the offence that she's committed.
Yeah.
How long were the jury out?
8 days, I think.
Okay.
Which seemed long at the time, but I'm not sure it is all that long for a 9-10 week trial.
Yeah, there's a lot to process. And
Yeah.
They would have known the pressure was on with their decisions. When they came back, were you surprised, or what were you thinking the result would be?
When they came back, I was in the camp of thinking Erin was guilty.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I was a juror. I still had that corner of a doubt that it would only take one or two of them to go, it's not quite beyond reasonable.
Yeah.
So if you'd asked me the day before,
Yep.
I would have said maybe 70-30 being convicted, but it wouldn't have surprised me.
Yeah.
Having heard the whole thing.
What was the media pack like? Because I know the media pack are always discussing and having bets on which way it's going to go.
I think more people. I don't think there were very few who thought she was innocent.
Yeah.
And again, I think the minority were still not sure if she'd be convicted.
Right. Okay.
The majority thought she would be and deserved to be, but not by a huge. It wasn't 99%.
Right.
It had been a. The defence had done a very good job of muddying enough moments, but at the end of the day, as even Colin Mandy said in the sentencing hearings, it was very grave offending, and but it was a fascinating case to hear every detail and track the journey of how a jury deals with, as I said, the curated and limited bits of evidence they have, but looking in their totality to reach a conclusion that there was no other reasonable explanation but guilt.
There was, we touched on one of the pieces of information, the fact that she went to the tip straight after the lunch. Also the fact that there was 3 other charges for attempt murder of Simon, her husband.
They were part of the trial right up until I think 2 days before the trial started.
Okay, so she was charged with those 3 other attempt murders.
Yeah, so she was actually facing 7 charges.
Yeah.
Justice Beale had, I think, ruled 3 of those charges. Anyway, he didn't want 3 of them to proceed.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the legal term is. And the prosecution took that to the Court of Appeal in Victoria, and they came back with quite a lengthy ruling. And in that ruling were descriptions of those 3 incidents. And when you read them,
could you give us just a brief detail? And we bear in mind that she hasn't been convicted.
She hasn't been convicted of
these. That's our disclaimer. But these were the allegations.
Are they? It started with her suggesting that they go on a walk, I think, to Wilson's Promontory, and without the kids, just to discuss something, whatever the co-parenting discussion needed to happen. She'd packed separate, lunch for them, but she had one lunch and Simon had the other. And he started getting very sick that night and ended up, I think she took him to hospital. They stayed in an Airbnb and he just got sicker. And about 2 days later, she took him to Leongatha Hospital and he was in hospital for days.
Right.
And they never could find out what it caused was. But a few months later, because they hadn't got to their lovely nature walk to discuss whatever matter they wanted to discuss, she suggested they do it again. And she brought, another prepackaged lunch over. I think the second one she brought it to his house and they were due to go the next day or whatever. And the same thing happened. He had the food she'd brought over that night. The next day he was sick as a dog and was in hospital again for a long time. I think the second time was the longest. I think there was like 2 or 3 weeks, and it was very sick. And again, they couldn't. The doctors. I should have the details in front of me, but the doctors couldn't nail down exactly what had caused the illness. And this, I think that would have happened while she was moving houses into Leongatha. And then the third one, they went to Hokwa, I think the place is called, or they were planning a trip there. And again, it was another, let's go away on just you and me, and we'll discuss, what has to happen with the kids. And the same thing, she brought prepackaged food, and he had one that was wrapped up, and it was a chicken curry for him and a chicken curry for her, but separate things. And the same thing. So it was 3 times in about over the course of a year, maybe a bit longer than a year. And after that third time, which again, it wasn't just, sick, I've got to go to the toilet for half a day. It was in hospital. It was, again, hospitalised. I think the second one he was actually in a coma for 5 or 6 days. It was very serious. So those were the 3 attempted murder charges that the prosecution also wanted to bring against Erin. The circumstantial case of the similarity between, I've pre-packed your food and I've pre-packed mine, and he gets sick the next day. But medically, there was no concrete evidence of what had caused his illness and whether it was related to that food.
Where the failing.
That's where the failing was. Yeah, so there was no, you couldn't point to a doctor saying it was something here, this is what did it, and it was in this chicken curry.
Yeah.
So because of that break in the line of evidence, circumstantially you look at it and you go, well, it's pretty obvious.
Well, the tendency and coincidence, but and just to clarify that the DPP dropped those charges against Erin in regards to Simon.
So that was a problem. Yeah. And I think the prosecution, I don't quite understand the law here, but bear with me for a second, was saying because of what happened with the beef Wellington lunch on July 29, that you can use that as evidence for saying she must have poisoned Simon with these 3.
Right.
But the Court of Appeal was saying you can't present those 3 on the same ticket as evidence for that lunch, if she's guilty of that, then becomes evidence for the lunches. It becomes circular.
Circular argument.
Yeah, it becomes a circular argument. And so you're needing the result on one to prove those 3, and yet you want those 3 to be used to prove the other.
Yeah.
And you can't do that. And they went, no, not allowed.
Okay.
So I can understand that, Roy. Yeah. And so they were separated from the indictment. But the jury knew there had been, because it had been in the press, the jury knew there had been 3 other attempted murder charges.
But they weren't informed.
But they were not informed. They were told, put it out of your mind, and they never knew any details about it.
So this is a hard thing for the jurors, isn't it? Because you'd be going, what the hell was that?
What's that about?
And I'm sure the conversation is happening in the jury room, going, what was that about?
Can we ask about that? Can we find out what that was? The prosecution was 2 days away from a trial. Yeah. Now we can't know anything about it.
It's a complex system, isn't it? So come back guilty, and she's recently been sentenced. What did Patterson get for these horrendous crimes?
The headline sentence was life imprisonment, which was not contested by the defence. What was contested was a non-parole period. The prosecution was arguing that she should never be released. The defence was saying because of the harshness of her situation in custody, she is so notorious because of the massive fame of the case that she's in solitary confinement, and because of that duress that there should be some non-parole period. And in the end, Justice Beale accepted that argument and put a non-parole period of 33 years. Okay. So she'll be in her early 80s when she gets out.
Okay. Well, it's still a heavy, significant sentence.
It's a significant sentence. Yeah.
Greg, I have enjoyed our chat again. With this, the book, is there a TV series in it? Is there a movie?
Look, I've been concentrating on getting the book finished first. Let's hope. I know there is a screen series in development, with the ABC, with another production company. But if any of the, big streamers and other broadcasters, read the book and want to develop a series out of it, I'm certainly here to help them.
Well, the Mushroom Murders, a fascinating read and a really novel concept looking from a juror's point of view. I obviously read a lot of true crime books, and I was sitting down about to start that, and I thought, this is a novel idea, like looking from a jury's point of view. But it really took you into the case, and it took me into the intensity of the trials. Like quite often, I say with a murder trial, how exhausting they are. Because it's an emotional roller coaster. You think you're in front, then you step back, and it really took us inside that and give us a bit of an insight into what the juror is all about. So I'm glad you've sort of done a U-turn in your career, or partially, and now you see yourself as a writer. Any other cases that you're looking at?
Well, I will now. Yeah, I've got to try and get back on I Catch Killers, so I've got to keep writing.
If you can get to a third, that is definitely something worth striving for.
No, look, I'm really glad you enjoyed the read, and I have enjoyed the pivot into authorship, and hopefully it'll continue.
It's an interesting way of telling the stories, isn't it? In a book, you get so much detail. And look, people that have enjoyed this podcast, what we're talking about, we've literally just scratched the surface of what's in the book. So, the Mushroom Murders.
Thank you, Gary.